we've got a semi.
This is my Stumpjumper 15. Last year, I rode and raced this bike for an entire season. There is no one in this world more qualified to give an honest review of this bike than me. So, after a year of living with this bike, it's time to tell you exactly.
Wow, I'm sorry you had to see that. You see, we all have a past, and while my first love was always telling people on the internet the truth about frames, not all of us were so pure, so innocent of heart, and in fact could be found standing on bermed corners. Remi peddling passion to the highest bidder, nothing more than a common billboard. Pretty woman walking down the street. Either way, we need to keep this clean, clear and unfettered by the $3.75 salary an enduro racer could earn. This is the Stumpjumper 15 Evo. This bike comes with a 160mm travel fork, 10mm longer than the standard Stumpjumperist, while still only having 145mm at the rear. To understand this bike, you have to understand the 3 trail bike wishes. How do you make a mid-travel bike feel bigger? How do you make a shorter wheelbase feel longer? And how do you get something that ticks all the trail boxes while shaking an angry fist at the roughest, fastest trails? Well, you start by rubbing your magic lamp. So you're telling me you have 3 wishes. You want your bike to feel like a 160mm magic carpet while still being poppy and efficient, and to be the perfect trail bike all-rounder. Well, let's see what this genie can do. This bike has to do something very difficult. Shut up. Not only does it have to be the trail bike you know and love, but it also has to be the breadwinner for Specialized's longer travel enduro intentions. You see, the enduro has been AWOL for a few years now. Yes, that 2019 bike is still very good, and no, you shouldn't feel the need to replace it should you own one, but it's an open secret that Specialized has been working on a new version, and in the interim, an interim of years, the little brother has had to do all the heavy lifting. To see the Stumpjumper in all its glory, you can't really look past the Genie shock. It's at the core of what the Stumpjumper is, as well as being the perfect crowbar to widen its remit. So, what is it? The Genie is an air shock that uses volume spacers to adjust 2 separate air chambers. It gives the rider the option to tune the air curve of the shock. There are external spacers where you can tune the stroke between 0 and 70%, and an internal spacer where you can tune the last 30%. This means the rider can really treat the 2 parts of the stroke independently. So whether you have a preference for an air or coil shock, you can get it close to your ideal setup in regards to the spring. Talking of the rider, we've had a breakout.
Listen, I really wanted to tell you how I truly felt about this bike, but my recent Stockholm Syndrome is preventing me from going against the wishes of my captors. But if I could tell you what I thought, I would say it's one of the most efficient bikes I've ever ridden. I'd also tell you that between the Genie shock and the conservative geometry, the grip on this bike is amazing, and it's one of the better cornering bikes I've ridden. And I definitely cannot tell you that while Specialized wants you to believe that this little trail bike can compete with big burly enduro bikes, I would say that's a bit of a stretch. But you didn't hear any of that from me.
How the hell did he get out? He didn't say anything, did he? And I hope I didn't go into too much detail about that shock, because that's something I've got a lot to say about. So many things about this bike just feel bigger than what they are. That rear end feels longer. Getting to sag feels plusher. And it is a very efficient bike, especially when pedaling. Now, if Remi could tell you anything, I'm sure he could list compelling reasons why this was his race bike in Enduro last year. Geometry-wise, everything about this bike is just so. I'm 6 foot and riding a bike with a 470mm reach, reasonably high stack, but quite a short rear end, and it just feels so balanced. This thing can turn on a dime whilst feeling very stable. You can hunt for grip or let it slip when you please. It kind of does it all. But as with all outlandish wishes, which seemingly this bike seems to satisfy, there is a compromise. Specialized put a lot into their engineering team, and I imagine its net cost is probably larger than some medium-sized brands, and they certainly know what they're doing. But I do wonder if by sticking to their classic FSR 4-bar, a system that isn't without its limitation, they haven't wished themselves into a corner somewhat. A corner they've then had to engineer themselves out of with some admittedly very clever design. I suppose from their point of view, if you're designing the whole bike and the whole system, why not design a shock that optimizes it? On the other hand, if you're designing the whole bike and the whole system, why use a system that needs a special shock to make the most out of it? It's a bit of a pickle. The might of Specialized can conjure up any bike they like. And let me be clear, this 4-bar with this optimized Genie shock is very, 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 very good. We're at the late stage 4-bar, and let me tell you, times aren't bad. That said, this system, compared to something like a DW Link on a pivot that doesn't use a special shock, well, I'm not sure it's got it beat. Because with Genie, it's very easy to end up on a setting that has a greater variation in the air spring, i.e. very soft one moment before being very supportive the next. It puts a greater emphasis on needing external compression adjustment so you can fine-tune it to your needs. Otherwise, you can get something that's very grippy but bangs through its travel, or to get the support you need, you have to pack that outside air cam with spacers, controlling it between 0 and 70%, but you lose a lot of its nuance, a lot of its sophistication, and it begins to feel like a bit of a pogo stick. Thankfully, the Evo version does come with a shock with an external adjustment, but in my opinion, its window is skewed towards riders who are that bit lighter. Now, that's not to say that lighter riders shouldn't get their shock tune, but not on the larger sizes. For the record, I'm 80 kilograms, and I felt it to be slightly underdamped. So much so that this isn't the shock off the Stumpjumper. It's actually one I borrowed off a Levo 4 with more compression damping, and it is a far better balanced all-round proposal. It lets you make the most of that incredibly fluttery air spring, delivering bag loads of grip, feeling like a coil all the way through the travel, except for the end, where you can independently tune that last 30%. So it's like a coil, you just never bottom out. Otherwise, it feels, honestly, not great. I was running more spaces in that initial 0 to 70% travel, and it felt like an underdamped bad shock from a few years ago, not really befitting a shock that is absolutely at the cutting edge. Overall though, with the correct damping, this is a very good system. There are some other foibles. Deep in its stroke, should you really be pushing the bike and you get on the brakes, it does have a tendency to really hang up. It doesn't bottom out, but it very much feels like it does. I would give this chain feedback rating, I would say around a medium, just because of that interaction on the brakes. But if we were to let Remi ride it and give it his 4 beans, would it rub him up the wrong way too? Let's get to our test track.
Wait, hold on. 9 seconds faster on the Stumpy? Well, our test track has had a little bit of a rebuild. but more on that in a future video. Now, back to my thoughts on the Stumpy. Okay, full transparency, the Stumpjumper 15 is a really good bike. Like I've said before, it's one of the most efficient bikes I've ridden. It pedals well, it accelerates quickly, and it's the kind of bike that makes you want to keep pushing rather than back off, especially on mellower terrain that requires energy to create speed. It also jumps great, which matters to me. And fit-wise, the slightly shorter reach compared to what feels like the industry standard of 480 millimeters for a size large is perfect for me. It's quick to change direction, and it's one of those bikes that makes you want to turn everything into a game. How much speed can I hold through this turn? Or how smooth can I be through this section? But let's be real, does 145 millimeters of rear travel get overwhelmed when things get gnarly? Yeah, it does. If you're smashing steep, rough terrain at full pace, you're going to find the limits. If you're a strong and skilled rider, you can absolutely make this bike work in way more places than you'd expect for the travel. But that's the trade-off of a great all-rounder. After a full year on it, I haven't had to replace a single bearing. It's been quiet, solid, and reliable. So, do I plan to keep riding this bike? I sure do. Remember, mountain bikes are awesome. Ride the bike you've got. Love you all. Thanks for watching.